come to Sicily to look for sulphur, and I can't think of a better place to start our trip than here on the lower slopes of Mount Etna. Around me you can see the lava from the 1995 eruption, and in the distance I think you can see the very cone of lava up there in the clouds. Now Sicily was one of the major producers of sulphur since ancient times, and it's one of the places where the medieval and later gunpowder makers got their sulphur from to make their gunpowder. Now Sicily is not the only place where you can get sulphur from. It occurs quite a lot all over Europe, but in much smaller quantities. However, one of the other major places we know of is Iceland, another area of high volcanic activity. Now what seems to have happened is that the early period, sulphur from Iceland and sulphur from Sicily seem to have competed quite a lot, especially into northern Europe, but really across Europe as a whole. But sometime, perhaps in the 17th or perhaps we think in the 18th century, the sulphur from Iceland seems to disappear from the market and Sicily takes over. And certainly by the 19th century, Sicily is supplying the whole world with sulphur. Unlike in Iceland, where the sulphur occurs on the surface of the earth, here in Sicily you have to mine it. You have to sink deep shafts into the earth to extract the ore and then process it. Now a lot of this work was done by young men and especially by youths, and it's clear especially at the early period there was a great deal of exploitation. However, later on, when Sicily became the major producer of sulphur for the world, it was actually quite a good job. Miners were quite well paid. However, by the early 20th century, huge deposits of sulphur had been found in America, and they could extract it at far less cost. So the industry here in Sicily completely collapsed. There was a great deal of unemployment, and many of the miners emigrated to America. We've come now right to the middle of Sicily, to a little place called Villarosa, which is right in the heart of the sulphur mining area. We've come to this very interesting museum here, which is actually set out on an old train on this platform. It's very interesting, and we've had a good look round. Very much concentrates on the life of the sulphur miners and the industry in the 19th century. We found almost nothing about the earlier period, about the medieval and certainly the 16th century industry, which we were more interested in. What we really wanted to find was a little bit more about why Sicily, why sulphur from Sicily became so important at that period and really developed so that it really took away the industry from all the other parts of Europe, and especially from Iceland.
Alle mie spalle potete vedere la miniera Gaspalatore.
Behind me, you can see the mines of Gaspalatore. It started up at the beginning of the 19th century and was still producing minerals in 1965. The owners of this mine were a wealthy family of Villarosa, the Salvaggio family. Later, the mine changed owners and it was bought by EMS, which stands for the Sicilian Department for Minerals. It is a very big mine, as you can see. Behind me on the right, you can still see the remains of the buildings used for the production of sulphur.
È una miniera grande, come voi vedete sulla mia destra, ma soprattutto quello che è importante, si possono vedere i vecchi calcherone e soprattutto i resti di quello che erano qui, praticamente la miniera di zolfo che era collegata direttamente con la miniera Sicily a Pagliarello ed fa parte del comune di Villarosa.
Another interesting thing is the river behind me. This river, also called Morello, is artificial. It was made in order to cool the water for the Calcarone. This huge mine once employed over 500 people, and you can still visit it today.
Per raffreddare l'acqua dei calcheroni, perché come stanno fotografando la nostra troupe, c'è dal vivo la possibilità di vedere questa enorme miniera che occupava circa 500 persone.
Here's one of the mine entrances going into the hillside where they went in to get the sulphur minerals out. It's very small because actually they were using an awful lot of children at this time, and there's actually no need to make it any bigger for them. And of course making it bigger was harder work, it had to move more material, so they actually made it very small. To extract the sulphur from the ore, a number of different types of furnace were used, and here we see the remains of one type. It contains 4 conical chambers, and you can see the tops of them from here. The extraction process was very simple and relied on the fact that sulphur melts at a very low temperature, just 120 degrees Celsius. Each chamber would be filled with the raw sulphur from the mine, which would then be very carefully set alight. By carefully controlling the flow of air through the chamber, the fire was not allowed to burn too fiercely, and as it burnt, it heated up the rest of the ore so that the sulphur in it melted. And as it did so, the molten sulphur ran out through the channel in the back of the chamber, where it was collected and poured into moulds.